Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is another speed build. This is one of my childhood homes. It's not my first because I really don't remember my first one. I moved to this particular house when I was around 4 or 5. It was the house that my parents bought right after my brother was born. And it was on family land across the street from my grandparents. Beside us was my uncle, and across from my uncle was my great uncle. So we were all together. Now, to show my age, this is an 80s double wide. It was new when my parents bought it, so a little bit of math, you can figure out approximately how old I am. I did most of this by memory. I moved out of this house for good when I was 11. My parents split up for the second time, and so most of this is by memory. Some things might not be exactly like they're supposed to be, but that's because I really can't remember it. I went back and forth between where I placed this house. I would build some, make it a room, move it, and then decide I wanted it back where it was. So you'll see a lot of different lots that it sits on throughout this build. But this is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. My bedroom, you will see, is very much bigger than my brother's, and that's not me just exaggerating. That was reality. I was a lot older than he was when we moved here. He was just a baby, and I was childhood age, so well, like, I was going into elementary school. So but when we first moved into this house, the small room next to the kitchen was actually our dining room, and then we had a formal living room and a like den. It was the giant room. When my parents split up the first time and we moved out, me, my mom, and my brother moved out, my dad transformed the dining room into his office. So when my parents got back together and we moved back in, they kept that room as his office and made the old den into the dining room, and then just had one living room. It was very hard to find the exact type of floorings and wall coverings that they had back then. So I tried to do the best I could with what Maxis gives me. So this was a deck that my dad built onto the back of the house, and the side of the house actually. And it's where we had our grill and stuff, and I didn't really spend much time on it. You will see me spend a lot of time doing the landscaping, but that's because I lived out in the country where we were surrounded by trees. I mean, they literally did logging to get to where the house could even be put on that lot. So there's a lot of pine trees around it, and you will see a gap when I start making the landscaping. And that gap is where we had a path that led to my uncle's house from our house. So I will be eventually building a lot of houses from my childhood. My mom, we moved around a lot, not like out of the area, but she just liked to move houses. It gave her some sort of thrill, she said, when I asked her as an adult. And so we had several houses when I was growing up. The 2 places that we lived in between my parents' split ups, I don't remember much of. One was just an apartment, and the other was a house that, the only thing I can remember is that there were snakes in the backyard. That's all I can remember. So I won't be building those 2, but some other houses I lived in growing up, I will be building as well. I did have a giant walk-in closet, and to explain how big it was, I could probably fit a toddler-sized bed in there right now. I used to go in there, me and my best friend when we were growing up, would carry our sleeping bags and stuff in there and actually sleep in my closet instead of in my room when she would come over. So, it's a pretty big closet. At first I put the get-together closets in there, but eventually I just moved them out and left it one giant room. And if for some reason I put this on the gallery and anybody downloads it, they can actually use that closet for anything they want. It was kind of hard to do my parents' bathroom because of the way my mom's bathtub was situated and the way they had it. I couldn't get the curtains to go up there. It was draped with curtains, but I couldn't get it to work, so I just put the curtains on the back wall and called it a day. So I didn't really decorate or clutter that much because my mom is not a clutter person whatsoever. I mean, the little bit that I probably put in this house was probably more than she would have allowed. She believes in everything being neat, tidy, and if you're not using it, it don't need to be there. So I didn't clutter it that much. I cluttered up my room. I made it true to form. I even left the dirty clothes on the floor because, well, that was me as a kid. So the outside actually looks really close. I showed it to my kids, and I mean, the house is still there. It's just owned by a family friend bought it, so it's still there and they can still see it. But they said the outside looks very, very similar to how it looks now. So I guess I remembered some things right. The kitchen threw me for a little loop. I forgot to put a microwave in it, but to be fair, we really didn't even have a microwave until I was about 10, so there was that. The windows in the kitchen above the sink is not how it looks, but you know, I don't have the windows like we would have had. And so I put the shelves on either side of the cabinets, and that's not what we had in our house, but it filled in the gaps that I needed. So curtains were another thing that I struggled trying to find good replacements for in the game because, I mean, apparently nobody makes 80s style houses anymore. Here I am beginning the landscaping, and when I say we had pine trees, we had a ton of pine trees. And honestly, if I could have landscaped any further back, there would have been even more pine trees because we were really in that type of area. My kids picked on me when they saw this part because they're like, why are you making this giant letter P? And I'm like, because technically that is what our driveway looked like. I never realized it until I made it. But it was kind of like so we didn't have to back out because we lived on a busy highway, even though it was technically the country type area. But we still had to back out unless you had a turnaround, so they made a turnaround driveway. The two pine trees in the front of the house is where I used to spend pretty much most of my time. I put a little chair there when I made this house, but I used to just like carry a lawn chair out there and just sit there and just, I don't know, stare at the road. I mean, there wasn't much else to do. We didn't have like cable, we didn't have internet, we didn't have satellite back then, so there really wasn't much to do. I did make the dog pen in the back, and when I was little we had a dog. It was a collie. Her name was Lady, and she stayed out there, but really I think they gave her to a family friend of ours when I was probably around 7 or 8ish maybe. And I mean, she lived a really good long life because I still saw her up until I was about 16, I think. Like I said, they gave her to a family friend, so I still got to see her. But this part was kind of hard for me because it was like sandy, but at the same time it had dirt, but at the same time it had trees and plants, and that was just really confusing. This was a really confusing part for me. So I tried to do it the best I could by memory, but I hadn't been there since I was really 11. So there is a Baby Yoda hidden in this house. As always, I always hide a Baby Yoda. Most of the time it's sized down to like a little figurine type size and placed somewhere. I normally don't ever place them on camera. I normally try not to place them where you can see them if I'm still recording or when I take pictures. This was the little bit of landscaping we had. I swear it took my parents forever to do that little bit, but that's really all we had. And then out back we had my brother's swing set. Well, my swing set, but after a while it became my brother's because I felt like I was too old for it. And he had a little pool, and this was the only chain link fence I could find in the game to make for the dog. And I couldn't even get the doghouse to come out right the way I wanted it because I couldn't size it down and without sizing the rest of the house and all of that. So it is what it is. And before anybody yells at me because my dog stayed outside and blah blah blah, that's how it was back then. Not saying it was right, but that's how it was back then. And I mean, of course she came into the house if it got too cold or whatever, but we also had heat lamps out there. And honestly, there were times I would curl up in her doghouse because it was warmer. I mean, she had like a giant doghouse, to be honest with you, but because it was actually warmer than just being outside. And so here I am trying to figure out a good 80s style wallpaper out of the options we were given, and I thought I was going to go with this one, and then I was like, absolutely positively not. The washer and dryer area, it wasn't quite like that. It had like the fold open doors, and I really couldn't do that with what I had. So, and of course I try to make all of my builds that I might upload to the gallery non-CC, so I really couldn't do much with that. So I really wasn't allowed in my dad's office that much, so for me trying to remember how it was a little hard. I knew we had cabinets, and I knew, you know, he had installed some cabinets and some shelves and things. So, and my mom she's obsessed with plants, so there were lots and lots of plants all around. But like I said, not too much clutter, so I'm not even sure why my dad needed an office. He was a paramedic. Well, he was a farmer at first, and then he became a paramedic. And so why he needed an office, not a clue. So all I know is he kept the drawers of the desk locked, and we weren't allowed in there. We weren't allowed to sit at his desk. We weren't allowed to, I mean, most of the time we just stood right there in that little archway area and shouted our questions to him because that's how it was. In the giant cabinets, I know that's where he kept his resources from where he taught EMT classes, and that's all I can remember about his office. I did put a computer in here, and to be honest with you, we didn't really have a computer. I think we did for a short period of time, and it was one of the big block ones that had little green characters on the screen, and that's all you had. There was no color. Pretty much it's nothing like how kids have computers these days. So Anyway, the bathrooms I put tile in, although in retrospect, thinking about it, I think they had carpet, which I've never liked carpet in bathrooms. So, and this is how I had the TV at first, but later on you'll see that I actually changed it, and without using CC, made an old 80s style console TV, because that's what we had. And I swear I don't remember the living room being this big, but it probably was, because we had a lot of space to run around the house in. And I threw the Christmas tree there, but it does get moved out at the end, because that's where we kept our Christmas tree during Christmas time, and I didn't know what else to stick there at the time. Alright, so this room is my room. I had a huge room. It had wood paneling walls that I absolutely despised, and it was quite a big room. I do have 2 beds in here, and the reason why is the double bed was mine, and my mom had 2 daughters from her first marriage who lived with their father, so they only came over on the weekends. And so my sister, who's about 6 years older than me, slept in the single bed. And I did have a ton of teddy bears. Teddy bears were my thing growing up. I didn't care how old I was. And I cut a lot of how I was decorating this house out, because I couldn't get the shelves that I had in my room to go quite right. But I had like homemade shelves that my granddad had made me, that I kept most of my stuff on growing up, and I just couldn't get them in there right. I threw things all around this room because, to be honest with you, I just didn't care growing up. You always found books on my bed. There were times they would come in my room because they would hear something bang in the middle of the night. It's just me kicking stuff off of my bed. I think I did end up placing some makeup in here. I'm not sure, which is odd because I never wore makeup, but I needed like some filler objects, because I mean, a lot of the things that I had growing up are, of course, aren't going to be in the game, and there's a lot of things that the game doesn't even have replacements for. I am the only one that had actual curtains in my room. That's because my mom wanted to make my room all girly, so that's what she did. I had these brown shelves there, but you see I replaced it with white, and I put the beams up because it was the only thing I could make that resembled what I had. I did put some random stuff in there, books, just to symbolize things that I liked. And like I said, I put a little bit of makeup on the table, but at the same time I never wore any, so it didn't really matter. I don't think I put anything in the closet other than the shelves, maybe. I don't really think I decorated it at all. So then I did expand it out because I had that little gap in my parents' room. So this was my parents' room across the hall from mine. The closet in between, which I used a get-together closet for, it was like a linen closet, and held like our towels, our sheets, things like that. I think we stored our vacuum cleaner and stuff in there, so that's what that was. And that yellow room is my brother's room, which, like I said, he was just a baby when we first moved there, and when we left he was probably around 5 or 6ish, so he really didn't have much, a need for a big room. Plus they figured he was a boy, he'd be outside roughing and toughing and all that stuff. But This was my parents' room. Like I said, it stayed pretty bare. Only thing I remember is my mom had her radio beside her bed because that's how she would tune out the world. And of course, you know, their dressers. I put towel racks at the end of their bed, but it's not supposed to be like towels. It was where they had their quilt rack, so I used that to symbolize the quilt rack. I did go back and fix the stuff on what is supposed to be my dad's dresser, which is the one closest to the outside of the house. And I mean, I went there and I just threw things up there, and I didn't really, you know, fix it properly. So I did go back and fix that. And I think in the screenshots at the end, after I took the screenshots, I went back and fixed some things that I saw. So the finished house will not look like necessarily like the screenshots did. I think I forgot like some lights and some things like that. My room really was the only room that was cluttered in the house because I refused to get rid of half of anything that I owned, and I would just get more stuff. And this was mine and my brother's bathroom, and this was my parents' bathroom. I wasn't really allowed in my parents' bathroom that much, so it was kind of hard to make it. I know that there was two closets. My mom's closet was the giant one, and my dad's closet was the small one. The small one stayed locked because my dad kept apparently everything he had locked. I just threw some clutter up on the shelves next to the sinks in the bathroom. Not necessarily because it's what was there, it's just what looked nice at the time. And so I did put the little laundry basket in since there is a washer and dryer in this house. But yeah, I mean, this was my house from the age of about 4 or 5 until I was 11. And then the next childhood house I will do will be the one I moved into when I was 11. I didn't know where to throw that bag of dog food. I don't even remember if I kept it or if I deleted it later on. And I mean, cluttered up the kitchen a little bit, and I went back after the fact and fixed where I wanted certain things and couldn't get it there the way I wanted to. I did throw some posters on the wall, even though, to be quite honest, I didn't keep many posters on my wall in this house, and I did keep postcards though. So it's kind of hard when you're trying to do things that are from your childhood, but you necessarily can't find what you had when you were a child. So, but the next house I moved into was from 11 till 16, I believe. And then and that's actually kind of a 2-house deal, because when we first moved there, we lived in one house with my mom's new boyfriend at the time, and then eventually she bought herself it was a triple wide trailer, and we moved his trailer off the lot and put my mom's up there. So that's kind of like a 2-for deal. And then the triple wide was from like 16 until I was about 19 maybe. And then of course at like 19 I moved out on my own. So I'll probably still do my adult houses too, because I mean, I don't live in those anymore, so it really doesn't matter to me. And there's a couple of those, not many. I didn't move around as much as my mom did, and if I did, it was because I had to move cities altogether for my husband's job. So, but this was my brother's room, and he still has a lot in there, believe it or not, for it to be the smaller room. But I made it his child room and not necessarily his toddler room. The castle dollhouse and the figurines were supposed to symbolize his Castle Grayskull from He-Man. All of his little He-Man figures. So, but yeah, I mean, this is my childhood. And yeah, we were the stupid ones who put his little child slide in his little kiddie pool and would slide in it just for kicks. I don't recommend it, but that's what we did. So anyway, he had a bunch of little toys, and I just threw some around, and then I went back through and just kind of put plants all around, because like I said, my mom liked plants. She can take care of plants. I can kill a plant. So there's that. Plus there were some gaps where I didn't know what else to put there, because I mean, yeah, we had a TV in the kitchen. I mean, my dad liked to watch Star Trek during dinner. Not something I would recommend, but that's what we had to watch, so that's what we watched. I did put pictures of dolphins up because, I mean, I've always loved dolphins, so that's there. So then I just started putting pictures around. My mom liked the older looking pictures, and I didn't decorate the hallway like she had it. She had it pretty much as a shrine to John Wayne, and I wasn't about to do that. So then I was going through just changing things when I noticed it and was like, don't really like that there, let me find something new. But pretty much this whole house is carpet except for like the kitchen and the 2 bathrooms, even though I still believe that the bathrooms were carpeted. I just chose not to do it that way. I can put this on the gallery. I would suggest changing it before you move your sim into it to fit more of your style, because this was my childhood style, so not really the greatest. Kind of glad that most of this stuff went out of style, because I'm really not a fan of it. Alright, so here is the little console TV that I made, and I'm showing how I made it using just, if you know what a console TV is, it was like a big box TV that sat on the floor, and it's hard to explain, just look them up. But this is how I made them, using cabinets and the TV, and it's fully functional, which you will see if I'm not mistaken. This whole house has been play tested. I have made sure that the dog can do everything, can get into everything. I've made sure that everything is usable. Screenshots get ready to come up. I hope you enjoyed this build. If you like this video, please leave it a thumbs up. If you're new here, like my content, please subscribe. Leave me some comments down below, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.